Are you a Black woman who has been harmed in the workplace? If so, the space is for you. This is a community healing space for us to reflect on what we've been through, what we've survived, talk about the consequences, the health consequences, the impacts of staying in environments where we are undervalued, underpaid, given multiple roles, forced to deal with things like aggressive behavior on an individual level, which is microaggressions. So we're going to get into it today. Please like this video if it resonates. Please comment below and share your experience if you feel moved. And please subscribe to my channel for future content like this. So yeah, welcome to everyone who's joining live. Please introduce yourselves in the chat. I see Shanna. Hello. Hello. Good to see you here as always. Latrice. Hey, good to see you. Yes, y'all, please check out Latrice's channel. She did a wonderful interview with Dr. Monica Cox. I think that was yesterday. I'm losing track of time, but I think it was. But yes, please check out Latrice's channel, Black Girl Magic Lawyer. But yeah, let's get into it. How the workplace harms Black women, right? Unfortunately, like so many of us can resonate with this, of being in toxic job after toxic job. I know that as I reflect on the jobs that I've been in, right, dealing with things like sexual harassment, and we have to talk about intersectionality when it comes to our experiences in the workplace, right? Not only are we dealing with racial trauma, we're dealing with gender discrimination, misogynoir, right? Yeah, and that has to be said. All the different intersections of our identities, right? Colorism, texturism, featureism, poverty, ableism, right? Ageism is another one that Black women deal with in the workplace. So how are these isms impacting what we're experiencing day to day? And we know that in the US, like work is such a huge part of our lives, right? Given the foundations of the US and how labor has been regarded since its inception, labor is kind of the center point of our lives. So if we're being harmed, right, so egregiously day after day in the workplace, what impact is this having on our health, our well-being, our relationships, our communities? We know that we are the leaders in our communities so often. And so when we're harmed, right, where does that pain go? We often don't even feel like we can take a break from experiencing this harm or step away from this environment, because a lot of us are supporting people within our families too. That has to be said, right? So what is the cumulative impact of workplace harm on Black women? So yes, if y'all have anything to share about things that you've experienced, if you feel comfortable, of course, in the workplace. I know that, like I said, as I'm just reflecting on the different experiences that I've had, sexual harassment, right, being underpaid, bringing stuff up, bringing the truth up. I think we talked about this on Latrice's live. I was in the chat talking about being a truth teller, right? So many of us are truth tellers. So many of us see things that other people choose to ignore, right? They may see it, but it's like, I don't want to compromise my position, so I'm not going to call it out. Those of us who are truth tellers, it reverberates too loudly within us for us not to say something when we see it. And often there are consequences for that, right? In environments where the truth is not welcomed. So how is that harming us, impacting us on a day-to-day basis, right? So yes, the cumulative effects of racial trauma and microaggressions. And microaggressions just being like individual aggressive behavior, statements, actions, other behaviors that intentionally or unintentionally show prejudice towards people in marginalized communities. And they can be subtle too. That's one of the things like covert discrimination, which I know that Jackie Abram talks about on her channel too. Racism doesn't show up the same ways that it used to in the workplace, right? So it can be even more like disorienting. Is this really what's happening? Right? Is this person really saying this to me because I was told that all of this was in the past? That's one of the lies that I think a lot of us are debunking. It's like, no, it's not in the past, it's in the present, because we're experiencing it day after day, right? And the harm that we're experiencing is not small. And so it can't be in the past. It can't. Yes. Latrice says, yes, Black women are more likely than our white peers to be sexually harassed at work. It breaks my heart. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. And yeah, just sharing a little bit of my own experience, right? That coming from Black men in the workplace. Like I have to be real about that. and to like see someone that you think that you can trust, right? It's like, okay, we're on the same accord. It's like, no, there's a different power dynamic there, right? And so that has to be said too. How many of us have experienced sexual harassment at work? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm sorry you dealt with that. I really appreciate that. Yeah. Shanna says, I'm a quiet Black girl. Yes. And no matter what workplace I'm in, it's seen as a weird, bad, negative thing. I'm sorry. Yeah. Ooh, I can resonate with that. I can resonate. Yeah. When you're quiet, it's like people think that you're stuck up. It's like, no, I just don't like talking to people. Right? It's that simple. Like, I'm an introvert with social anxiety, right? But because we have been dehumanized so often, like people think we have to fit in this box, this stereotype. It's like, hold on, I have a personality, right? I came here with all these characteristics that make me an individual person. I have social anxiety, right? All of these things that make us who we are, but that's overlooked because we're being dehumanized and just placed in a box of how they think Black women should show up, right? So then we're stuck up. Then we don't want to be a team player. It's like, no, this is just who I am. But there's no room for our humanity so often in these workplaces. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah. Latrice says, I'm sorry, Shanna. Black women aren't allowed to be introverted. Latrice, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hi, Elba Coyote. Yes, relatable, Shanna. Yeah, it is. Yeah, and for Black women introverts in the audience, I know they're like your experiences, if you would like to share more about that. Because that's another layer, right? When you are quiet, when you keep to yourself, when you're naturally like, you go inward. That's what I do a lot, right? I process things inward. I'm not about to share everything that I'm experiencing like right off the bat. Like it takes me a second to get to that point. But by the time you get there, right, people can already have a perception of who you are, right? And that's so important. Yeah. Black women introverts in the workplace. Yeah. 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 Thank you for sharing that with us. That resonated. Yeah. So stereotypes, right? The next bullet point, biases that lead to unequal treatment, being overlooked for promotions to being burdened with extra labor. So it's kind of like the both ends of the spectrum, right? Being overlooked for a role, for a higher role, something that you have demonstrated that you can do, right? A lot of us are performing above and beyond what our job description says, and then we're still overlooked, right? And then the other side of that, being burdened with extra labor. Oh, here, you can take this role too, right? You can take 2 more roles, 3 more roles, right? Viewing us as the workhorse, as Jackie Abrams says. Just keep piling stuff on her. She'll be okay. It's like, no, right? We're done with that. We're done because that's dehumanizing. That's dehumanizing. Hey, Dr. Kamani. Yes, speaking of Dr. Kamani, I will be co-hosting How to Heal from a Toxic Job, the masterclass, this Sunday from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll be walking through things like racial trauma in the workplace, the impact of that, microaggressions, right? Experiencing these things, again, on a daily basis, with work being the center point of our lives, especially in the US. How does this impact us? And how can we begin to heal, reclaim our self-confidence, our self-esteem, know who we are again, rebuild our identities outside of the roles that we play for other people? That's not who we are, right? We were someone before we took on this role. So can you get back to that version of who you are? Outside of this role, outside of this job, it's like, no, these external things are so fickle. And so being able to know who you are fully and completely, having that permanent sense of being rooted in that can really like serve as a shield, right? In a lot of these environments that try to whittle away our self-esteem, break us down. So that's so true. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So that extra labor, right? So it's being both visible and invisible, both hypervisible and invisible at the same time. It's confusing, right? Just to say that it's confusing. to have people hyper monitor you on one end, and then when you're up for a promotion or recognition, then you get overlooked. Well, it's like, what am I supposed to do? Right? A lot of this, if you allow it to sit within you, right, and not externalize that as something is wrong with this environment, a lot of us have a tendency to internalize what we're experiencing in the workplace. Something's wrong with me. I have to pick myself apart from the inside, right? I did a video on self-criticism, something we go to a lot when we're not externalizing what's happening to us, which is why I always advocate for that. Can you push it back on this toxic environment? On these people who are not seeing your value, because you know who you are. You know that you came here fully valuable, fully worthy, and so it has to be them. Right? Just like removing the tendency to blame yourself completely from the equation. And not saying that we can't reflect on things that we do just as people, as human beings, but to say that something's inherently flawed with you, wrong with you, reject that. No, it's not. No, it's not. Yeah. I can totally relate. BG introverted. Yes. Coral. Hey, Coral. Yes. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. The knives come out so often for Black women introverts. In the workplace. It's like when you, again, process things internally, when you need a moment for things, when you don't want to volunteer for everything or be up the front at everything, people are like, why not? What's wrong with her? I'm just an introvert. That's it. But it's like the level of dehumanizing us, again, over and over for centuries. And that's why it's important to understand that these things never went anywhere. They morphed, as systems do. They morph to the current times, but they don't go anywhere. So that's why it still feels like a lot of the stuff that we experienced in the past, our ancestors did, because it's still in the present. The system didn't go anywhere, it just changed, it just morphed. Yeah, we're happy you're here. We're happy you're here, Coral, yes. So yes, yeah, being underpaid for the roles that we do. Again, sometimes working 2 roles, which I was doing, 3 roles, 4 roles, right? As much work as they can pile on us. And me just having to learn that I can say no, right? Understanding that there may be consequences, because that's real. That has to be said. In an environment that's already piling work on you, they already do not view you as fully human a lot of the times, right? So when you like tap into your agency and say no, there may be consequences for that. But being prepared for that, because knowing your value is not in the work that you do or how much work you can do or how fast you can get it done. Are you well? Are you well? Right? And understanding that you have options to pivot outside of this toxic environment, or this environment that's not serving you, not valuing you as you should be. That should be the default setting. We should expect that when we come into a workplace, right? Something I put in the description section is we're told like, this is just what we should expect, right? This is just how it is. This is normal, right? But we're seeing our lives literally truncated, right? Cut short. So this is a matter of life and death for a lot of us. We've seen people come before us whose lives have been cut short from the treatment they experienced in the workplace. So this is much bigger, right? And us being able to say, no, this is not normal. I shouldn't have to sacrifice my life, my well-being, my health for a paycheck. Yeah, yes, Coral, yes. Definitely evolved and morphed. And having that awareness and that understanding when you go into the workplace, that these systems that we read about, that we're taught, and that's another thing, right? Redacting our history, but that we're told so often is in the past, Why are we experiencing this in the present day then? Having that awareness that systems will continue to evolve and morph over time to adapt to the current circumstances, but until you dismantle them fully, they're still there. That's why things seem the same, because in a sense they are. Jasmine said, I've always been told to be seen when trying to get ahead at work. Then it becomes she's loud, when in all reality, I just want to be in silence and do my work. That's it. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I can feel that. Yes, yes. Just to be in silence and do your work, right? Again, being hypervisible. It's like, I'm not even paying attention to you, but you're focused on me, right? Because something that I'm doing is like eliciting like an emotional response within you. You need to check that. Because I'm just over here doing my work. And now I don't want to talk to you again because I'm an introvert. I don't like people like that. Right? Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Hey, Butterfly Effect. Always good to see you here. Yeah. The Coyote says there's a lot of catty comments from customers like, oh, you're working hard, to, oh, you should smile. Oh no. You should smile. You're prettier when you do. Like, y'all, I'm overworked and this is a discount store. I'm sorry. Yeah. I feel a lot of it comes from jealousy as well. I'm so sorry. That's unacceptable. That is unacceptable. Yeah. Yeah. And I've heard that comment before, right? You should smile. It's like, no, I'm not happy. If I'm not happy, I'm not going to smile. I'm not here to perform for you. Another way, like, to cut at our humanity, right? Who are you? Right? I didn't know that I was on a stage. I thought that I was at work just doing my job. And so why are these extra expectations added to us in the workplace that we have to show up and perform and act like we like stuff and we don't? Act like we're happy when we're not. That's a lot of extra emotional labor, right? Because you're masking. You're masking. And I had this conversation with someone, oh yeah, yesterday, right? The mask that we have to put on in these environments, right? And understanding and having awareness that you can take it off. Once you get to that point, it's like, okay, when I step in the door, I'm taking this off because this is not me. But if you don't have that awareness that you're even wearing a mask, you can think that that's you, right? You can forget that you can remove that. You might have to put it on to survive these inhospitable environments day to day, but know that you have the power to take it off and come back to your authentic self and understand what it is that you're entering into. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Come on, Latrice. We don't have to tap dance for these people. Oh, it's true. It's true. And that's the expectation, right? I didn't see that in the job description, tap dancing, but that is the expectation. I want you to like work extra hard, right? Especially those of us who get to positions of authority or we have some sense of power, right? Now I want to make you jump through a few extra hoops just because I want to. All right, it's that level of evil and inhumanity. Yeah. Shayna says, yes, people feel offended when you don't want to engage with them. It's definitely on an issue with them if they take it to heart. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. It's them, right? And being able to externalize again what you're experiencing versus turning within, especially those of us who are introverts. We have a tendency to, again, process internally so we can begin like picking apart ourselves. Like, did I say this wrong? Did I do this wrong? Let me change this. No. Your first thing is like externalize that. Before you go within, can you go to the environment that you're in and realize that it's not supportive? It doesn't value you. It's kind of bent on your oppression a lot of the times when we're in these environments. Can you do that? And how does that feel? Because I know for me, that can feel like a burden lifted off of me. Now I don't have to pick myself apart because I've externalized what I'm experiencing. And there's power in that. Yeah. Hey, Carol. Yes. Hello. This is important to discuss, but so painful to recall the experience. Yeah. Yeah. I get that. Yeah. And if it's painful, please, because this can be a lot, right? It's taken me a minute to even get to this point to be able to discuss these things. So if it is triggering at any point, please come back. The live will be uploaded for future watch. But yeah, I get it. It can be a lot to revisit these experiences and again to heal and process what we've been through. It can be important to revisit them, whereas something like therapy would be helpful in that process. But yeah, please give yourself time, right? We're unpacking literally decades of experiences that we've had, that now we're able to connect the dots because so many Black women are sharing their stories about what they've experienced in the workplace, or before it was kind of like taboo. Again, given the foundations of the US, right? Black women's labor throughout history in this country. You couldn't say these things out loud. And so this is new, right? And the more of us who share our experiences, it's like that may trigger a memory in someone like, wow, I didn't even remember that. I didn't even realize that was so traumatic. I didn't realize I shouldn't be sexually harassed in the workplace. I just thought that that was a normal part of work because that's how it's taught to us. So yeah, please give yourself time, patience, grace in processing and understanding and healing from what happened in the workplace. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. I'm not your Negro, James Baldwin. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dr. Kamani. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, butterfly effect says, but they come with all manner of dehumanizing toxicity. 100%. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is so true. SK says that when you hit the targets, the goalpost is moved. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Right? Because it's continuing to want you to chase. Right? Chase this. No, chase this. It's like, because who holds the power in that situation? The person holding the carrot. And so that's how the entire system is set up, to make us jump through another hoop after another hoop, right? You got this position, you got this title. So now I'm going to add a few more things onto your role. A few more expectations that are not written anywhere. Again, it's confusing because you're trying to figure out, how am I supposed to navigate this situation, this job? And the things I'm expected to do are not necessarily listed in the job description, but they're expected of me. And if I don't do them, I'm going to get dinged. We know that performance reviews are a huge way that they target Black women in the workplace, right? For expectations that aren't even like written down, that aren't even told to us. And so it's an entire system literally set up for us to fail. Yeah, and that can cause grief. Understanding that, because this whole time you've been working, you've been putting in so much of your heart, of your effort into what you're doing, right? To realize that it was set up this way the entire time, it's like, wow, that can take a second to digest. Yeah. Hey, Nia, good to see you. Hey, MJ, yes, after I called out a white woman who aggressively cut me off in a group meeting, she started to cry. I wasn't having it. I was the only Black person in the group. They wanted to talk about belonging. I I wasn't interested. I went in and wasn't censoring her tears. Yes. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. That is a tactic. That is a tactic. Yes. Right. And it puts, like you said, it puts the emphasis back on the person who did the harm when they start to cry. It's like, no, you're the one who did the harm. How are you now getting the hugs and the, are you okay? It's like, no. Right? And again, throughout history, we've seen how tears have been weaponized. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Latrice. Yes. Thank you. Yes, retaliatory PIPs are illegal. Yes. Performance improvement plans are illegal. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So if you are put on a PIP, right, in retaliation for something that you brought up, for something that you said, we know that these are like gaslighting tactics, right? So often, a lot of these things are not even real. And again, that's one of the ways that oppression works, right? It's to create a bunch of mirages that you know are not real. But when you're the only one experiencing it, again, people will turn against you who you thought that you could count on. Because that's how the entire system works. It has to have other people, especially people who look like us so often, to uphold these tactics. And so it can be so confusing. So yes, thank you, Latrice. Know that that is illegal if this happened to you. And Latrice works with Black women to negotiate severance agreements in toxic jobs. Yes. Nia says, my former supervisor was a white woman. She acted as if I was going to physically harm or raise my voice in my exit meeting. Shameful. I'm sorry. Yeah. 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 That resonates. That resonates. Yeah. It's, again, the emotional labor that you have to take on to coddle people so often, right? To try to, like, I don't know, morph, right? Dim, shrink the messages that we're given so often when it's not us the entire time. I'm sorry that that happened to you. Yeah. Shanna says, OMG, thank you for bringing up pretending to be happy at work. I'll never understand it. We came here to perform the job, not to audition for a movie. Okay. I didn't know I was up for this role. No, I am here to do a job, right? In the job description. Why do I have to have a smile plastered on my face? It's a lot. It's a lot. And the expectations, right? That you are just consistently happy every single day. If that isn't dehumanizing, I don't know what is. Who is happy every single day? Right? There's no room to have an off day. To be like, you know what, I don't really want to talk to you today. There's no way to say that. And so many of us have to put on the mask day after day. And what impacts does that have on us long term? You can begin to lose touch with yourself, which is one of the things we're going to help attendees kind of rediscover. In the masterclass I'll be hosting, Dr. Kamani this Sunday, how to heal from a toxic job, this one. 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern this Sunday. There's the link if you'd like to register. And we will have special guest Angela Kanu, who is a wonderful, wonderful social worker, emotional wellness coach, who I did healing from childhood attachment wounds. We co-hosted a workshop earlier this year. And Alicia Gill as well will be a guest speaker on Sunday as well. So yes, if you're in the process of healing from a toxic job, understanding what happened to you, processing it, again, externalizing what you went through, knowing the impacts of things like microaggressions, racial trauma, racial weathering, which Black women face in the workplace, to the extent to where like it really impacts our health to such a severe level. The stories that I've heard, right? Like heart attacks, strokes. Our lives are being cut short from workplace trauma, right? This is actually a labor issue. We shouldn't be expected to sacrifice years of our lives for a paycheck, right? That expectation is dehumanizing, egregious, and it's tired, right? Yeah. Goonies girl, hello. Yes, after working for myself for years, I'm needing to go back to the workplace. Yeah, and I have such resistance. Yeah, I'm kind of in that space of exploring that myself. And yeah, I'm feeling that same resistance. Like, no, but yeah, I feel this. And thank you for sharing this. Yeah. And I think it's like having the awareness, right, again, of what you're entering into. I know that when I first entered the workforce, right out of college, I had no understanding of any of these things that I would encounter. No one told me, which is one of the things like Dr. Kamani and I have talked about. Like, how do we prepare young Black women coming right out of college, entering the workforce for what they may experience? Because so often we're taught that this was in the past. You have nothing to worry about anymore, right? People will see you as fully human. Why wouldn't they? And then we get into the workforce and we're met with that harsh reality that no, this wasn't in the past. This is very much in the present. Yeah. So how do we prepare people to enter the workforce? I think that's important. Oh, thank you. Looking forward to watching the replay, about to be interviewed. Oh, yes. Thank you for this discussion. Absolutely. Yes. And please check out Stephanie Perry's channel. Dr. Kamani did an interview with her. I think it was uploaded last night on toxic jobs. Yes. Yes. Wishing you luck at your interview. Yes. Dallas Destler? Yes. If you're put on a PIP, it's over for you. That's how they got rid of me. Wow. Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah, I know Latrice has talked about this on her channel as well. Let me link Latrice's channel. And Latrice, again, is a Black woman lawyer, helping other Black women in toxic jobs negotiate severance agreements, understand their legal rights in the workplace if you do find yourself on the pathway of getting put on a performance improvement plan, which is a PIP. It may be important to speak with Latrice. Yes, and I can't type and talk at the same time, y'all, so give me 1 second. Okay. Oh, thank you, Cora. I appreciate that. That is a much needed conversation. I hope I can make it Sunday. We hope you can make it too. Yes, this is going to be, even for me, right, as a person, like one of the people who are co-hosting it, this is information that I need as well, right, that I've been gathering and going to share on Sunday, right, about healing from a toxic job. What are the different facets of our lives that have been affected and impacted? How is our self-esteem been impacted by what we've experienced, right? It's not always easy to just move on to another job like a lot of other people can do when you're being subjected again to microaggressions, right? And just like those behaviors on an individual level, that's the prefix micro. Macroaggressions, which I just saw today, like institutional arrows that are pointed at you. That's not always easy to just pick up and move on because you've been traumatized. Something that we're just now beginning to understand and recognize, that this is not just commonplace, like everyday things. These are deeply traumatic experiences that are actually impacting our brains. So yeah. Yes, y'all, please subscribe to Latrice's channel for content on legal rights for Black women in toxic workplaces. Nels, hello, Nels. Yes, as a nurse in the South, among all the racism and toxic junk, the most painful is the older Black folks, and some not so old ones not wanting a Black nurse. The problem is deeply ingrained. Ooh, I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. Right, and internalized oppression. The messages that we receive about ourselves. In an oppressive society, we now turn those inward to ourselves. Right, and it impacts other folks in our community. That's one of the things I'm going to be talking about in the future, lateral oppression, how we oppress each other, right? Because oppression is about power. So in any way we can get a little bit of power back, we often do it to each other. And that is how the systems function. That is what they want. I'm sorry that you experienced that. Nia says, I'd like to hear your thoughts on silence as complicity because I spoke with someone who openly admitted to doing so during the election. After speaking with her, I see it as situational. Interesting. Silence as complicity. I'd love to hear more about this. Silence is complicity. Because I think sometimes, depending on, your life circumstances, we can't always speak up about what we see happening, right? Again, because our lives are tied to our job so often. And it's important to recognize that you have options, right? But getting to that point can be difficult, and understanding that and recognizing that. So a lot of the ways that these systems function is fear. So we can be afraid to speak up, even though we see something happening. It's like, I have a family to take care of, right? How am I supposed to speak out? Because I've seen the consequences. Another way that oppression works, they will use someone who spoke up in the past as an example to now put those same seeds of fear and doubt in other people who may before have been willing to speak up, but now it's like, I don't want to be like that person, so I'm just going to keep silent. Right? And that's why there's power in collective, right? Coming together as a collective and demanding change and calling out things that are wrong. Because individually it can be scary. It can be scary, yeah. Yeah. Just reading through the comments. But yes. Let's see, other ways the workplace harms Black women. Isolation, a lack of support, right? Again, being placed in these roles, sometimes they're new roles. This was the case for me, not given the adequate support. Not everyone was on board with me being the first Black woman in this role, right? So if everyone's not on board, not everyone is going to be there to support you in the way that you need to be supported to succeed. And so again, you're being set up to fail, right? And you're feeling isolated because you are often, right? Asking for help may, depending on the environment that you're in, right, may result in people being like, oh, you should have known how to do this. How are you supposed to know how to do it if you've never done it before? Right? Expecting you to go above and beyond past your job description, past your job duties to teach yourself something that they were supposed to teach you, but they didn't want you in that role in the first place. So it's understanding that and having that radical acceptance of the environment that you're operating in. Right? And not taking that on yourself. Please don't. Please don't. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you for the hearts. Oh, Dallas Desalerworth. Imagine being placed on a nonsensical pit because you did your job well. Jealousy at its finest. Wow. I'm so sorry. Wow, that is. And we talked about before, right, how confusing this is. Right? Even the concept of from pet to threat, coined by 3 Black women professors, Dr. Keisha Thomas, Dr. Rosemary Phelps, Dr. Juanita Johnson Bailey, right? Who coined this term about what so many of us have experienced in the workplace, but we didn't have a term for it before. So we thought it was us. When you shine so brightly, when again, you're doing your job so well, that can also elicit a response in people, right? On being placed on these things. And so now it's kind of like your reality is warped. And that's why it's important to have a permanent sense of self as you enter these workplaces and not place so much emphasis on how people perceive you, which is something I'm having to unlearn, right? That external validation that we're taught to seek. So it's not you, it's not your fault. Because our reality can be warped if we know that we're putting in time, effort, energy, love into what we're doing. And now we're being placed on a list for not doing our job well because someone's insecurity was triggered by your brilliance. And so that process can be extremely confusing, right? That's what I experienced too. So there's really no way to win, right? There's really no way to win. I think having that radical acceptance about these environments that we're entering into, teaching people as they're coming out of college into the workforce what to expect, how to just treat this as a job to work for you. I think Stephanie Perry said that, right? How can your job work for you? Get what you need from it and let it be. Because having to seek external validation in these institutions, it's a losing game. And I think so many of us are realizing that, right? And really like being at a point where we're able to share this out loud. Yeah. Hey, Kiyoka. Yes, a big thing for me is realizing that you can experience trauma without physical harm. That's key. That's key. Thank you. Yeah. Because the way that trauma is still presented, right, is if someone like physically harms you, which I have heard, I've seen, not personally, but like working with people, right, who have told me about instances of physical harm in the workplace towards them as Black women. So that has to be said. But like the trauma of the emotional things that we're experiencing, the mental fatigue. I think it's racial battle fatigue is the term I'm thinking of, right? Racial weathering. Being exposed to this on a daily basis, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. What is this doing to our psyche? What is this doing to our bodies? This is deteriorating a lot of our bodies. Again, shortening our lives. It's really that serious. Yeah. Thank you, Kyoka. Yeah. Yeah, thank y'all. Yeah. We often discredit our own experiences because it's a trauma we can't directly point to and don't even recognize the damage. Yeah. Yes, this is so true. Yeah. So can you tell yourself your own story? Right? Refrain from discrediting what you experienced, from self-gaslighting, telling yourself it wasn't that bad. Other people have it worse. I overreacted. If you have experienced someone gaslighting you, which is them questioning your reality, a lot of us will then do it to ourselves. So in those moments where you feel those initial body responses, because re-embodiment is really the key to understanding how you're being impacted and traumatized. When those initial signals pop up, can you keep a record of them for yourself so that you can refer back to that list or those voice recordings and be like, in this moment, I experienced heart palpitations when this person said this to me. I felt anger rise in my throat, right? Because I felt like I needed to say something back, but I couldn't. In those moments, that's your body telling you you're being harmed. And so can you keep that list for yourself to stop discrediting yourself and actually trust what you're experiencing as harm, as trauma? That's true. Thank you. Yes. Oh, thank you. Yes. Please like the video, y'all. Please subscribe to my channel. Comment down below if any of this resonates with you. One of the ways that I have been healing, is by reading your stories and your comments. And I feel like just collectively, as we share our experiences, our knowledge gained through these experiences, right? It's like, it's free. Because you realize you're not alone. You're not alone. This is a pattern of behavior that Black women are experiencing in the workplace. We're being harmed in the same ways over and over again, globally. Globally. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So being penalized for speaking up, another way Black women are harmed in the workplace. Retaliation, as Latrice talked about before, which is illegal. Dismissal, or being labeled as angry, are difficult when we have legitimate reasons for voicing concerns. Again, one of the ways that oppression works is to put the blame back on us. You're being too much. You're being too sensitive. You're being too difficult. Stop. No. This is actually a legitimate concern that you're raising, and that's making people uncomfortable because you're getting to the truth. A lot of these environments operate on lies. And those of us who are truth tellers, especially, who are highly perceptive about what's happening in our environments, when we start to naturally point things out, then we become a target. Right? So it's realizing, if you are being penalized for speaking up, that the problem is not you, the problem is the environment. And freeing yourself from that. Right? If someone's telling you that you're being too much, you're being angry, you're being difficult, you know what your body, the response that your body has to mistreatment and harm. We all have those body sensations, whatever it is for you, right? It always gets warm right here. When someone like disrespects me, I'm like, hold on. That's my body telling me that that is not okay. We have these natural built-in defense systems and alert systems that tell us when we're being harmed, right? But living in an oppressive society, we're taught to downplay those to ourselves. We're taught to discount them, push them to the side, tell ourselves that we're being too much. When no, this is a legitimate response to harm, to being underpaid, to being overworked. And so can you hold on tight to your reality and know that it's true? It is true. Yeah, Shanna says it is very serious. It is, yeah. When it starts affecting sleep, going to sleep with palpitating hard and anxious, waking in the middle of the night in a panic, not getting adequate sleep, it really harms you. Yes. Yeah, so what we're talking about is a serious matter, right? It's not just something that's like flippant as go to a different job. If you're in a toxic job, though, you do have options. I always want to say that. But it's much deeper than that. Our lives are being cut short from the trauma and the harm that we experience in the workplace. in 2024 globally. And again, hearing Black women's stories from around the world, the pattern that you can draw, right? It's like someone said this before, like playing from the same playbook, how they're treating us over and over again. And we are dealing with the consequences of our health being impacted, our sleep being impacted, our appetite, our relationships, our communities. And again, as the leaders of our communities, as we often are, how is this having a ripple effect? Intentionally. And with work being told to us as it should be the center of our lives in the US, so often as it is, if that's the place where we're being harmed over and over again, like what are we supposed to do? And I have some more thoughts on this that I'll share later. I am going to take November off, I think, from doing interviews and just to reflect on the information that I've gained that you have shared with me and process it to be able to, I think, touch on the severity of this issue, right? Of workplace harm, trauma that Black women are experiencing in the workplace. Yeah. Yeah. Goonies girl, yes, it's crazy. They made us have to be brilliant because being mediocre would get us nowhere, but then we're punished for excellence. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And again, that can be so disorienting. Um, I've noticed a lot of people in this community on my channel are high achievers, as Dr. Catherine Bell says, high achievers, right? We have a natural inclination to achieve things, to get the top things. And a lot of the ways that we're socialized, especially as Black women, is to be on that track. But then we're being penalized in the workplace. We're being targeted for being a high achiever, for being ambitious. All of these things that we're put on a track to do and be. And so how disorienting is that? Right? And it has severe consequences, like mental health consequences. When you have put so much time, effort into getting these things, these degrees, these titles, and now it's sparking insecurity in people who now are targeting you and trying to take you down because it reflects back to them how mediocre they are. That can be a really traumatizing experience to sift through. Mm-hmm. And it's just realizing that it's not you. You're not the problem. You're not the problem. It is the environment. Racial weathering. Mm-hmm. Yeah, something we're going to be talking about on Sunday. Again, how to heal from a toxic job. I do want to, let me see if I can share this real quick. Yeah. So this is the presentation, the masterclass that I'll be hosting with Dr. Kamani coming up this Sunday from 5 to 7 p.m., How to Heal from a Toxic Job. Again, we'll have guest speakers, the lovely Angela Kanu, who is a social worker, emotional health coach, and then Alicia Gill, who is the founder of the North Star organization. I'm still sitting with Alicia's comments. I interviewed her a couple weeks back on how to find your North Star. She dropped so many gems in that conversation that I'm still having to process. So I'm excited to see what she will be sharing as well. Let's see if I can go. Yeah, so we'll be talking about processing workplace trauma, rebuilding your self-confidence, rewriting your story, which Angela will be talking about. Healthy coping mechanisms, which is important to have. Moving forward, we'll be touching on childhood wounds as well, which is something I've talked about before. How deep this goes, right? Because we're bringing in the things that we've experienced throughout our lives into the workplace. And so if you have something like an anxious attachment style, which I'm still healing from, How is that showing up in you feeling like you can't set boundaries? And then how is that reinforced with the oppression that Black women experience when we do set boundaries? Again, the gaslighting. It's you. You're not able to do your job well. All these things like not being true, but these are the messages that we receive. Right? And so it's confusing. But yes. If you would like to register, placing a link here in the chat. Yes. Just going through these comments. Yes. Commission idea. Yes. Yes. Yeah, Latrice has an idea. I don't know if you shared about this on your channel, but to develop a commission, right, of experiences that we've had, Black women have had in the workplace, as we start to understand domestically and globally the connections and the pattern of behavior, mistreatment that we continue to encounter in the workplace over and over again. That's literally to the point of taking years off of our lives. Yeah. I love this, Nia. Does this environment allow me to flourish? If not, it's time to make an exit plan. That's it right there. Yes. Does this environment allow me to flourish? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. Yep. Stereotypes were used to silence us. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And just the stereotypes of Black women at work that we are constantly fighting against. Right? Stereotypes are dehumanizing by default. That is stereotyping. So to be able to show up as a full human being, it's like there's often not space for that. If we don't fit into this dehumanizing stereotype. Yeah, I have thoughts about that. Yeah, that's real. That is real. Yeah. But yes, burnout, anxiety, depression, right? Things that we experience in the workplace so often. If you are experiencing any of these things, know that you're not alone, right? The anxiety, again, of being in an environment, if you are being picked apart all the time, you're being told that what you're doing is wrong. And just going back to childhood trauma, which I touched upon that we're going to be talking about in the masterclass, if you grew up in a household where this was commonplace, of people picking you apart, of people telling you what you're doing is wrong, these patterns like continue to play out in the workplace. And we think that we have to stay and subject ourselves to this because we didn't have an option to leave as children from an environment that seems so similar. So we're attracted to similar environments, and we also feel like we have to stay once we do recognize that this is not healthy. And so by healing those childhood wounds, the messages that you received very early on, right, that were not conducive to your wellness, that did not support you or view you or uplift you as a full human being, as you begin to heal those childhood wounds, you'll find that if you do enter a workplace like this, right, and it has that familiar feeling, now you know that you have the agency to take yourself out of that environment and go to a different one or create your own. And that's the importance of understanding how these wounds that we experienced early on during our formative years continue to show up in the workplace, in relationships and adulthood. That can really be a source of true healing as we're understanding the harm that we're experiencing in the workplace, and also our agency to extract ourselves now as adults from environments that do not value us. Right? As Nia said, that do not allow us to flourish. That should be the default. That should be the expectation. of work. But we know the foundations of these systems, of the capitalist system. So, yeah. MJ says, as a coach, I don't push the toxic positivity, no complaining pressure on my clients who have functioned in systemic injustice, but people invested in not hearing them. Thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah, because having had experiences in the past, right, where you go to someone for help to share your story and they hit you with the toxic positivity, it's like, now I can't be happy about being harmed, being oppressed. That doesn't make sense. So thank you for giving your clients that space to express, right, the anger that comes with that. Because these are our body's natural feelings and emotions that we are then taught to suppress or label as something else, right? Because it's not acceptable for us to be angry. So now I have to be sad. It's like sitting with those natural emotions, responses that first pop up, because that's where the information is coming from. Yeah. Oh no. Who tells two Black professionals in a private room that they're, oh wow. That told me everything about the culture. I am so sorry. Ooh. There are no words. I'm sorry. That's completely unacceptable. Ooh. And thank you for sharing that with us. Unfortunately, I know that, right, derogatory language, and it's the feeling of, especially being isolated, which I've experienced before. Being the only one, being isolated, being on a coffee chat, right, one-on-one. Some folks feel like they can then just let loose and say everything that they've been thinking, right? But now that they have you by yourself, yeah. And I hate that so much. Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is. We are, Nia, yes. We are taught to suppress our gut feelings. Yep. And that's one of the ways that re-embodiment can really help us heal from harm. What signals is your body naturally giving you, and how can you allow those to be? To provide you with the information of how you're being harmed, how you're being disrespected, and then use that as fuel to make your exit from that environment, because you don't deserve that. That should not be an expectation of being at work. Yes. Yeah, Butterfly Effect says, I believe our treatment rises to the level of human rights violations, which Latrice's commission idea could address, along with the civil rights violation, labor issues, and psychological harm. Yes. Thank you, Butterfly Effect. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. I got to come back to this comment. Mm-hmm. That's so true. Right, surpassing civil rights violations at the level of human rights. We're talking about our lives being cut short, which we have evidence, unfortunately, through other Black women whose lives have been cut short, through illness, right? Through suicidal ideation and acts. This is really that serious, right? Workplace trauma, it's not anything to be taken lightly. Yeah. Mia says, I can no longer internalize the mistreatment. It manifests as disease in the body. The stress Black women have to constantly undergo is not healthy. Something has to give. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just that first part, I can no longer internalize the mistreatment. Yes. Because that's what we're taught to do so often. Again, intersectionality and understanding our experiences, especially in the workplace, is so important. Being socialized as women, right? To go within when we're angry, when we're being mistreated, when we're being harmed, versus it going where it needs to go on the person who harmed us, who is mistreating us. And it absolutely does manifest as disease. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. Yeah. The Eagle's Nest 411, hello, says, yes, workplace trauma and abuse had me experience bouts of depression, no appetite. Mm-hmm. These type of people do exist in most workspaces. Drama, gaslighting, gossip, or slandering. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's so real. Depression, loss of appetite, right? Just a list of symptoms that you experience, again, in an environment where you're being mistreated, harmed, abused day after day. The toll on your body is not small. Again, 8, 10, 12 hours per day of this treatment over decades sometimes. What effects does this have on us? Right? Loss of appetite, loss of sleep, anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation sometimes. Right? Again, if you come from an environment in childhood where you could not leave and you were experiencing similar things, you may also feel like you can't leave this environment as an adult. And that's why it's important to tap into your agency and realize those wounds that you may be experiencing, right? That may be telling you that, but always know that you have the power to leave. As an adult, you have the agency. Yeah. Because you don't deserve to be harmed for a paycheck. I mean, it just has to be said. Why is that the expectation? Right? Given the foundation, again, the roots of Black women's labor, especially in the US, but globally, that tells us why this is the expectation. And we're still not being viewed as human. Yeah. Yes, y'all. So as we're wrapping up, let me see. Okay, the last one. Long-term career and health consequences of navigating spaces that consistently undermine your value, voice, and your well-being. Right? So if you leave a toxic job, if you were in an industry that you really wanted to be in, but you had to leave this role, that could mess up your trajectory that you wanted to be on. Right? That you put so much effort, time into. How are these like intentional barriers in pits that we're being pushed into to throw us off the track that we put so much effort, time, energy into? Right? How is it impacting your sense of self? Surviving an environment like this, having to mask on a day-to-day basis. How is it impacting your well-being? Not being able to sleep, sometimes not being able to eat, the basic life functions that sometimes go away when we are being harmed. That's our body's way of telling us this environment is not for you. Right? But the fear, again, that is instilled, the sense that this is just what we have to put up with. This is what we should expect. We should be lucky to have a job because other people have it worse. So I might as well just put up with this. Well, if everyone's told that, right, the level of harm just keeps going up and up. Because now those defenses that we naturally have to being harmed are lowered because we think that other people have it worse. This is just our lot in life. And it's really through us like collectively demanding being treated well as the default, not as an exception, as the default. Yes, y'all. So I'll read a few more comments and I'll let y'all go on this Friday night. Yes, high alert. It is, and the toll that it takes on your nervous system, having to be on high alert, having to be hyper vigilant, if you're being monitored all the time, surveilled. How can you rest? How can you take a deep breath? That's unnatural. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah. Goonies Girl says, I'm in a one-party consent state when it comes to recordings. Trust and believe I'll record and document if there's any inkling of an offensive conversation. Yeah. And that's so important to know your rights, as Latrice teaches us, right? Know your legal rights in the workplace before you enter, right? If you're thinking about going back into the workplace after a time off, can you be prepared for what you may encounter and set yourself up if I have to exit, right? Be prepared to exit on day one. I think, did Anne-Marie Archer say that? I think the anti-HR lady, right? Have that strategy in place. Yes. Yes, y'all. As we're winding down, I want to thank y'all for being here. Remind you, if you are interested, and anyone who's on here, right? If you are still healing from workplace harm, if you're still trying to process the trauma that happened to you, if you're still in the job that's harming you, please come to our masterclass that I'm hosting with Dr. Kamani this Sunday, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern, How to Heal from a Toxic Job. We will be sharing healing strategies. It'll be a safe place for us to process what we've been through. We'll have two special guest speakers, Angela Kanu and Alicia Gill, both of whom I did interviews with on my channel before, if you want to check those out. But we're really like getting to the root of our experiences in the workplace and how it has done things like affected our self-confidence, affected our belief in our abilities and our skills, and how we can move forward and reclaim these parts of ourselves that we lost temporarily, because they're still there, in toxic work environments, moving forward to something better, because something better exists. So I hope that you'll join us on Sunday. But yeah, y'all, I want to thank y'all again for being here, for everything that you shared in the chat. As always, if you're watching on the replay, please comment below, like and subscribe, and share this video with other Black women who are healing and understanding the harm that they may have encountered in the workplace as well. I want to wish y'all a beautiful rest of your Friday night. I'll be talking with Winsome about healing from shame on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And then I'm going to take some time off to recalibrate and rest. But I hope y'all have, yes, you're welcome, Latrice. Thank you for being here. I hope y'all have a beautiful rest of your night. Until Tuesday. Bye, y'all. Thank you.